What's up, guys? Tusa here. Today I'm going to show you kind of a forum post that I see a lot, and it's kind of help. I have bad DPS. Is my DPS bad? And I just want to show you how you can answer that easily, and also how you can improve your play, or if you even need to do anything to improve your play, and if you're just not reaching the numbers you want to because of gear or something. So we're going to use three tools. The first one's ePeanBot. And then there's CompareBot and World of Logs, which I'll get to later. So ePeanBot's pretty simple. You just type in your realm, your character, and what it does is it gives you a breakdown of your World of Logs parses for that day. So if we look at the Iron Con fight here, we can see on this day I ranked in the 57th percentile of all Beast Mastery hunters for that day. That's a little bit interesting to look at, but there's no real way to say, hey, is this just because, I wasn't playing well? Do I not have as good a gear as everyone else? That sort of thing. And maybe what can I do to improve? So we're going to load up another tab with ePeanBot. And in this tab, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a top hunter on my server. He's in top rating guild, or 13 or 13 heroic, Raden. And he's putting down the deeps, he's parsing in heroic modes, all that sort of stuff. So we measure him, we look at the same spec, same fight, Iron Con. And one thing about the fight that you're going to choose is you don't really want to choose fights where there's a lot of ads or a lot of weird mechanics that are going to affect DPS, like heroic Tordos is a bad example of a fight you'd want to use, just because sometimes some people are always on the ads, so they're going to have higher DPS. Sometimes they're just on the world turtles instead of the bats. So we're also going to ignore the 25 percentile parse, just because he probably died there or something. Instead, we're going to look at the 94th percentile parse. So you just click on these links here, and what they'll do is they'll open up these World of Logs fights. And so what you want to do is you want to go to Kills Iron Con, and here's Bitter's fight. You can see that he ranked 52nd on this fight. He actually probably ranked higher, just because this is the current rankings, not the rankings for that day. So we go to Kills Iron Con, and then go to Dashboard, Damage Done. Do the same thing for his parse, and you click on the character name that you want, Tuser Bitters. Now we open up CompareBot. And what this does is it accepts at least one parse URL for a player for a specific fight, and it kind of gives you a breakdown of how you did on that fight, what spells you're using, buffs, and all that sort of stuff. It's just a nice way to break out and compare different parses. So we're going to give these nice names. And unlisted, and compare. And so this first screen is a little bit lackluster. It's not too informative. One thing to note is it does list your Bestial Wrath usage for hunters. Bitters used 9, which is a little bit strange. He should have probably gotten 10 out of a fight that lasted this long. I got 10 out. The fight length doesn't really matter. It might skew a little some skills, but overall what we really want is found under this damage tab. And again, fight length and gear we don't really care about, so we don't really care about these raw numbers, so we can uncheck these columns: total damage, ability, DPS, number of hits, crit, ticks, dot, crit. What we really want to look at is dot uptime, miss, glances, dodge, parried, immune, and hits per minute. Now hits per minute, that's really what's going to tell you, are you using your skills to the best of your ability? Are you following your priority as well as this other player is following their priority, who is, ranking? In this case, Bitters had about 20 eye levels higher than me, so I wanted to know, is there anything that I could do, just rotation alone, that would help improve my DPS. So we look at auto shot and arcane shot. We can kind of ignore those just because they're haste based, and yeah, cobra shot we can also ignore that. That's again haste and focus based, which is a little bit hard to track and compare, just because obviously haste is dependent on gear. Now we come over to dot uptime. We can actually see I had better dot uptime than he did, but again 3% is pretty minimal, and it's probably, you know, Serpent Sting fell off during Bestial Wrath, and he didn't refresh it because you don't want to waste that global cooldown. Lightning Strike we can ignore just because it's RNG. Kill Shot, I had 0.3 less hits per minute for Kill Shot. Now that's, you know, potentially somewhere I could improve, making sure that I am using Kill Shot on cooldown. I generally try and weave a spell in there if I'm far away, just because of the flight time. But it's also somewhat dependent on fight length. You know, maybe our guild spent less time in the 20% range than his guild did on this specific fight, so he got more kill shots out. Again, this is also going to be skewed slightly on fight length, but as you can see, our fight lengths are somewhat similar. Glaive Toss, we can see he got out 4.9 hits and I got out 4.6 hits. So that's a little bit interesting. Ideally, for Glaive Toss, it has a 15-second cooldown, so at the very minimum, this should be 4. If it's under 4, you're doing something wrong. You know, but this tells me he got more hits out, so that means he probably had better positioning in the last phase. So his Glaive Toss was hitting more of the Quillen than mine were. So, you know, that's something that I can think about for that phase, is better position myself so my Glaive Toss is hitting all of the Quillen instead of just, you know, maybe 1 or 2. Stormlash we can ignore. That's a Shaman buff that he had that we didn't have. Multi-shot, again, these numbers are pretty similar. I used it a little bit more, perhaps because we spent longer time in the 3rd phase where all the Quillen were up. Again, if I didn't have any multi-shots and he had some, you know, that's a red flag to me that's saying, okay, why is he using multi-shot and why aren't I using multi-shot? When is he using this? When is the ideal time? And that's kind of what happened with Explosive Shot here. You see that he actually used it and I did not, and that's something that I need to remember for the future, is, you know, use Explosive Trap in that phase where there are a lot of adds up. The unfortunate thing about Beast Mastery Hunters is that Kill Command doesn't show up on the individual player parses. Instead, it shows up on the pet parses, and basically you can run CompareBots on the individual pets. You just click this little triangle, go down to the pet, and that's the URL you would use to compare. I'm not going to do that now just because the breakdown for both my pet and his pet were pretty much exactly the same. Silencing Shot, this is a little bit weird. He wasted a global cooldown on Silencing Shot. Maybe he was testing to see if some spell could be interrupted or something, but that's something he probably didn't want to do to optimize his DPS. Cobalt Frag Bomb, Hand of Sacrifice, and kind of ignore those. Now, an interesting thing is the Mist column, especially for this fight, because there is that phase, that Quillen that puts up the shield and causes all your shots to miss if you hit that shield. You can kind of see I had 34 misses, whereas he had 11. Now this tells me right away this is something that I can do to improve. You know, he had better positioning around those shields than I did, so he had less misses. There's some RNG, but you know, ideally, you know, I probably could have got this down more. Ideally, you want it to 0. But to kind of put that into perspective, if you go into average hit, you see just auto shot, for example. I had 35k average auto shots. I missed 14 times because of those shields, and what that equates to is around 500,000 damage on the boss that I did not do due to those shields. Alright. This really is just a high-level priority overview. There's a lot of different things that you can do to help increase your DPS, but this is by far the best place to start. You know, if for example, I only had, you know, two glaive toss hits per minute, you know, immediately that's one place where I could increase my DPS. Of course, there's things like buff stacking and, you know, movement anticipation, that sort of stuff that's going to increase your DPS as well. But 9 times out of 10, when I see these forum posts that say, help, my DPS is bad, it's usually down to improper priority usage. You're not maximizing your priority in the sense that you're not using the skills off cooldown. Maybe it's a focus issue, maybe it's you just don't know your priorities. But yeah, I hope this guide has kind of helped you guys, you know, see what you can do to help improve your game, and maybe it's just a gearing issue, but more often than not, it's you're not doing something quite right in your priority. So if you like this video, please subscribe.